Men are moved by two levers only, fear and self-interest. Napoleon Bonaparte, they tell you empathy is the ultimate virtue, the key to unlocking human connection. They preach understanding, compassion, and the illusion of universal goodwill. They are wrong. Naivety is a fatal flaw. While the masses blindly stumble, clinging to idealistic fantasies, the competent minority understands a harsher truth. Control begins not with outward displays of affection, but with a precise understanding of the hidden, often unpleasant, mechanics of the human psyche. It requires seeing people not as they wish to be seen, but as they truly are, driven by primal urges, insecurities, and a desperate need for validation. To control another's mind, you must first discard the comforting lie that everyone operates from a place of rationality. Beneath the veneer of civility lies a tangled web of subconscious desires, fears, and unresolved traumas. These are the levers of influence. Learn to identify them. Master the art of subtle manipulation, and you can guide their actions, shape their beliefs, and ultimately command their loyalty. This isn't about brute force, it's about surgical precision. It's about understanding their vulnerabilities better than they do themselves. The world rewards those who understand the game. Sentimentality is a liability. The path to genuine power is paved with difficult truths, the kind that self-help gurus and motivational speakers conveniently ignore. Forget the platitudes. Embrace the shadows. Learn to exploit the weaknesses inherent in human nature. Only then can you truly control the hidden minds around you and forge your own destiny. Human behavior is rarely a product of conscious thought. It is a symphony of subconscious biases, emotional impulses, and ingrained patterns of behavior, most of which operate far below the level of awareness. To believe otherwise is to build your strategy on quicksand. The first step, therefore, is to become a keen observer of these hidden currents. Watch how people react under pressure. Note their inconsistencies. Listen not just to what they say, but to the unspoken anxieties that lurk between their words. Every tick, every hesitation, every subtle shift in body language is a clue, a crack in the facade that reveals the truth beneath. Consider the power of validation. Humans are social creatures, hardwired to seek approval from others. This need for validation can be a potent tool. By offering carefully calibrated doses of praise and recognition, you can create a sense of dependence, making them more receptive to your influence. However, avoid empty flattery. People are surprisingly adept at detecting insincerity. Instead, focus on identifying their genuine strengths and accomplishments, and acknowledge them in a way that resonates with their own self-image. The key is to make them feel seen, understood, and valued, without appearing to be manipulative. Conversely, the fear of social rejection is an equally powerful motivator. No one wants to be ostracized, ridiculed, or excluded from the group. By subtly threatening their social standing, you can induce anxiety and compliance. This does not necessarily involve overt threats or bullying. Often, a carefully placed remark, a disapproving glance, or a strategic silence can be enough to create a sense of unease and insecurity. However, tread carefully. Excessive use of this tactic can backfire, leading to resentment and rebellion. The goal is to create a subtle pressure, a gentle nudge in the desired direction, rather than an outright assault. Another key aspect of controlling hidden minds is understanding the power of cognitive biases. These are mental shortcuts that our brains use to simplify complex information, often leading to irrational decisions. For example, the confirmation bias leads people to seek out information that confirms their existing beliefs, while ignoring evidence to the contrary. By understanding these biases, you can frame your arguments in a way that resonates with their pre-existing beliefs, making them more likely to accept your point of view. Similarly, the anchoring bias suggests that people tend to rely too heavily on the first piece of information they receive, even if it is irrelevant. By strategically planting an anchor, you can influence their subsequent judgments and decisions. Furthermore, tap into the primal urges that drive human behavior. Beneath the layers of civilization, we are still creatures of instinct, driven by desires for survival, reproduction, and dominance. These urges can be harnessed to motivate action and influence decisions. For example, the desire for status and power is a fundamental human drive. By appealing to their ambition, you can motivate them to work harder, take risks, and ultimately serve your interests. Similarly, the fear of loss is a powerful motivator. People are often more motivated to avoid losing something they already have than to gain something new. By framing your arguments in terms of potential losses, you can create a sense of urgency and compel them to act. Moreover, learn to exploit their insecurities. Everyone has vulnerabilities, hidden doubts, and unresolved traumas that can be exploited. By identifying these weaknesses, you can create a sense of vulnerability and dependence, making them more susceptible to your influence. This does not necessarily involve malicious intent. Often, simply acknowledging their insecurities and offering support can be enough to create a bond of trust and loyalty. However, be aware of the ethical implications. Crossing the line into manipulation can have serious consequences, both for yourself and for your target. The goal is to understand their vulnerabilities, not to exploit them for personal gain. The most effective form of control is the one that is never noticed. It is the subtle art of shaping perceptions, influencing decisions, and guiding actions without ever appearing to be in control. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, a keen eye for observation, and a mastery of subtle manipulation. It is not about brute force or overt coercion. It is about creating an environment in which others willingly choose to act in accordance with your wishes, believing that they are acting of their own free will. The key is to become a master of influence, a puppet master who pulls the strings from behind the scenes, shaping the world to your own design. Finally, remember that knowledge of these techniques carries a heavy responsibility. Power without wisdom is a dangerous thing. Use these principles with caution and discernment, always mindful of the potential consequences. The ability to control hidden minds is a powerful tool, but it should be wielded with restraint and a clear understanding of the ethical implications. True mastery lies not in the ability to manipulate others, but in the wisdom to use that power for the greater good. Consider the case of a seasoned negotiator in a high-stakes corporate merger. She doesn't begin by pounding the table or issuing demands. Instead, she meticulously researches the opposing team, identifying their individual ambitions, financial pressures, and past failures. She understands that beneath the veneer of corporate power lies a collection of human beings, each driven by their own desires and insecurities. She uses this knowledge to her advantage, subtly tailoring her arguments to appeal to their specific needs and concerns. Perhaps one member of the opposing team is eager to prove himself after a previous setback. She might offer him a prominent role in the new merged company, subtly stroking his ego and securing his support. Another might be primarily concerned with job security. She reassures him that his position is safe and that his skills will be highly valued in the new organization. She doesn't make overt promises or resort to outright bribery. Instead, she carefully frames the merger as a win-win scenario, highlighting the benefits for each individual involved. She understands that people are more likely to cooperate when they believe that their own interests are being served. Moreover, she pays close attention to the nonverbal cues of the opposing team, reading their body language and facial expressions to gauge their reactions. She notices that one member consistently avoids eye contact when discussing a particular aspect of the deal. This tells her that he is uncomfortable with that issue, and she adjusts her strategy accordingly, addressing his concerns and offering a compromise. She understands that communication is not just about what is said, but also about what is not said. Throughout the negotiation, she maintains a calm and composed demeanor, never revealing her own anxieties or insecurities. She projects an air of confidence and authority, which inspires trust and respect in the opposing team. She knows that people are more likely to be influenced by someone who appears to be in control. She also uses the power of reciprocity to her advantage. She is willing to make small concessions on minor issues, knowing that this will create a sense of obligation in the opposing team and make them more likely to concede on more important issues. She understands that people are more likely to return a favor than to give something for nothing. The entire process appears to be a fair and balanced negotiation, with both sides making compromises and reaching a mutually agreeable solution. However, behind the scenes, the negotiator has been subtly manipulating the situation, guiding the opposing team towards her desired outcome. She has used her understanding of human psychology to shape their perceptions, influence their decisions, and control their actions. The opposing team believes that they have negotiated a good deal for themselves, but in reality, they have been subtly led to accept a deal that is far more favorable to her client. This is the art of controlling hidden minds, not through brute force or overt coercion, but through subtle manipulation and a deep understanding of human nature. The negotiator leaves the table with a triumphant, yet imperceptible, smile. She has demonstrated true mastery, achieving her objectives without ever revealing the extent of her influence. The illusion of free will remains intact, while the reality is that the opposing team has danced precisely to the tune she orchestrated. The implications are far-reaching. In boardrooms, in political arenas, in personal relationships, the ability to understand and subtly influence the hidden motivations of others can be the difference between success and failure, between dominance and submission. But with such power comes an immense responsibility. The ethical considerations are paramount. The line between persuasion and manipulation is often blurred, and crossing that line can have devastating consequences. The wise practitioner understands the importance of restraint, of using this knowledge not for personal gain or exploitation, but for the greater good. The ultimate goal is not to control others, but to understand them, to build genuine relationships, and to create a world where everyone benefits. The trap, for most, lies in a fundamental misunderstanding of human motivation. They believe that logic and reason are the primary drivers of behavior, constructing their arguments and strategies on the assumption that others will act in their own best interests, as defined by a rational calculus. This naivety is their undoing. They fail to recognize the potent undercurrent of emotions, biases, and unconscious desires that shape every decision. The weak assume that everyone operates under the same principles of fairness and reciprocity, a belief that leaves them vulnerable to exploitation. They trust too easily, failing to scrutinize the hidden agendas and ulterior motives that lurk beneath the surface of polite conversation. They are easily swayed by appeals to their vanity, their sense of justice, or their fear of loss, failing to recognize these as calculated manipulations designed to cloud their judgment. Consider the politician who promises utopia while subtly appealing to tribal instincts, the salesman who feigns friendship to close a deal, or the charismatic leader who exploits the anxieties of their followers to consolidate power. These are all masters of manipulation, preying on the weaknesses of those who lack the awareness or the will to resist. The weak are also characterized by their reactive nature. They are constantly responding to the actions of others, never taking the initiative to shape their own destiny. They are like leaves caught in a stream, tossed and turned by the current, with no control over their direction. They allow themselves to be defined by external forces, their self-worth dependent on the approval of others. This lack of autonomy makes them easy targets for those who seek to control them. They crave validation, and they are willing to compromise their principles to obtain it. Their fear of rejection is a powerful lever that can be used to manipulate their behavior. They are afraid to stand alone, to voice dissenting opinions, or to challenge the status quo. This conformity is their prison, confining them to a narrow range of possibilities and preventing them from realizing their full potential. Another critical flaw is their inability to see the larger picture. They are so focused on immediate gratification, on the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain, that they fail to anticipate the long-term consequences of their actions. They are easily distracted by shiny objects, by promises of quick riches or instant fame, and they fail to recognize the underlying risks and dangers. They are short-sighted, impulsive, and lacking in foresight. This makes them vulnerable to scams, to exploitative relationships, and to bad investments. They are like moths drawn to a flame, blinded by the allure of immediate reward, unaware of the peril that awaits them. The weak also tend to be overly concerned with appearances. They are preoccupied with maintaining a positive image, with projecting an aura of competence and success, even if it means sacrificing their integrity. They are more interested in being perceived as intelligent than in actually being intelligent. They are more concerned with being liked than with being respected. This obsession with appearances makes them vulnerable to flattery and manipulation. They are easily swayed by those who tell them what they want to hear, even if it is not true. They are afraid to admit their mistakes, to ask for help, or to show any sign of weakness. This fear of vulnerability prevents them from learning and growing. The trap is further reinforced by a lack of self-awareness. They fail to understand their own motivations, their own biases, and their own vulnerabilities. They are blind to their own flaws, and they are unwilling to confront their own demons. They live in a state of denial, clinging to comforting illusions about themselves and the world around them. This lack of self-knowledge makes them susceptible to manipulation because they are unaware of the levers that can be used to control them. They are like puppets dancing on strings, unaware of the puppeteer who is pulling them. To avoid this trap, one must cultivate a ruthless self-honesty. One must be willing to confront one's own weaknesses, to acknowledge one's own biases, and to challenge one's own assumptions. One must strive to understand the true nature of human motivation, to recognize the power of emotions and the prevalence of hidden agendas. One must develop the ability to see the larger picture, to anticipate the long-term consequences of one's actions, and to resist the temptation of immediate gratification. And above all, one must cultivate a deep sense of self-reliance, a willingness to stand alone, to challenge the status quo, and to define one's own destiny. This is the path to sovereignty, to freedom from the control of others, and to the realization of one's full potential. This is the path to true power. The path to exerting influence over the hidden minds of others begins with a clear understanding of their vulnerabilities. These are not always obvious, for individuals often construct elaborate facades to conceal their true selves. The key lies in observing their behavior, listening intently to their words, and identifying the patterns that reveal their deepest insecurities. Pay particular attention to the areas where they exhibit defensiveness or excessive pride, as these are often indicators of underlying weakness. Once you have identified these vulnerabilities, you can begin to subtly exploit them to gain leverage. This does not necessarily involve direct confrontation or overt manipulation. Instead, it is a matter of strategically positioning yourself to take advantage of their existing flaws. For example, if someone is overly concerned with their social standing, you can use subtle flattery to gain their favor, or you can create situations that allow them to demonstrate their superiority. If someone is driven by fear, you can use carefully crafted threats to control their actions. The most effective techniques are those that operate beneath the level of conscious awareness, subtly influencing their thoughts and emotions without their knowledge. Remember, the goal is not to break them or to cause them harm, but rather to guide them towards a desired outcome. To truly master the art of influencing hidden minds, one must also understand the power of suggestion. Human beings are remarkably susceptible to suggestion, particularly when it is delivered with confidence and authority. This is because the human mind is constantly seeking patterns and making assumptions about the world. When presented with a seemingly plausible suggestion, the mind tends to accept it as truth, especially if it aligns with pre-existing beliefs or desires. The more convincing the suggestion, the more likely it is to be accepted, regardless of its actual validity. This principle can be used to great effect in a variety of situations. For example, a skilled negotiator can use suggestion to convince the other party to accept unfavorable terms, or a charismatic leader can use suggestion to inspire followers to take extraordinary risks. The key is to frame your suggestions in a way that is both appealing and believable, and to deliver them with an air of unwavering conviction. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, as well as a keen awareness of the specific context in which you are operating. Furthermore, it is essential to maintain a calm and composed demeanor, as any sign of doubt or uncertainty will undermine your credibility. Another crucial element in controlling hidden minds is the ability to manage information. Information is power, and those who control the flow of information are in a position to shape the perceptions and beliefs of others. This can involve selectively withholding information, distorting information, or even creating entirely fabricated information. The goal is to create a narrative that serves your own interests, while simultaneously discrediting any competing narratives. This requires a sophisticated understanding of propaganda techniques, as well as the ability to anticipate and counter the efforts of your opponents. It is also important to cultivate a network of informants and allies who can provide you with valuable intelligence and help you disseminate your message. However, it is crucial to maintain a high level of discretion and to avoid leaving any trace of your involvement. The most effective information campaigns are those that appear to be spontaneous and organic, rather than carefully orchestrated. This requires a great deal of skill and patience, but the rewards can be immense. By controlling the information landscape, you can effectively control the minds of those who inhabit it. The manipulation of emotions is yet another powerful tool in the arsenal of the Machiavellian strategist. Emotions are the driving force behind human behavior, and those who can effectively manipulate emotions can effectively control actions. This involves understanding the triggers that evoke specific emotions, as well as the techniques that can be used to amplify or suppress those emotions. For example, fear can be used to create a sense of urgency and compliance, while anger can be used to incite aggression and violence. Hope can be used to motivate people to pursue ambitious goals, while despair can be used to break their spirit. The key is to identify the emotions that are most relevant to your objectives, and then to strategically deploy those emotions to achieve the desired outcome. This requires a keen understanding of human psychology, as well as a deep empathy for the feelings of others. However, it is important to maintain a detached and objective perspective, as allowing your own emotions to cloud your judgment can be disastrous. The manipulation of emotions is a delicate art, and it requires a great deal of skill and discipline. Finally, remember that the ultimate goal is not simply to control the minds of others, but to achieve a specific objective. Whether that objective is power, wealth, or influence, it should always be kept firmly in mind. Every action, every word, every gesture should be carefully calculated to advance you towards that goal. Avoid distractions, resist temptations, and never lose sight of your ultimate purpose. The path to mastery is long and arduous, but the rewards are well worth the effort. By cultivating a ruthless self-discipline, a keen understanding of human psychology, and an unwavering focus on your objectives, you can unlock the hidden potential within yourself and achieve extraordinary things. The world is yours to conquer if you are willing to pay the price. The control of hidden minds has always been the invisible engine driving empires and wars. Consider the Roman Empire, a masterclass in psychological manipulation on a grand scale. It wasn't simply military might that allowed Rome to dominate vast territories for centuries, but a sophisticated understanding of how to control the emotions and beliefs of its conquered populations. The Romans offered citizenship, a powerful incentive that instilled loyalty and a sense of belonging among disparate groups. They built roads and aqueducts, demonstrating tangible benefits of Roman rule and fostering a sense of gratitude and dependence. The Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity, was carefully cultivated to lull populations into a state of complacency, making them less likely to rebel. But beneath this veneer of benevolence lay a ruthless pragmatism. Dissent was swiftly and brutally suppressed, serving as a chilling reminder of the consequences of defiance. Public spectacles, such as gladiatorial combats and chariot races, served as emotional outlets, diverting attention from political grievances and reinforcing a sense of collective identity. The cult of the emperor, promoted through propaganda and elaborate rituals, fostered a sense of awe and obedience, elevating the ruler to a godlike status. This carefully orchestrated blend of rewards and punishments, of inclusion and exclusion, allowed Rome to maintain its grip on power for centuries, not just through brute force, but through the subtle art of controlling the hidden minds of its subjects. The illusion of choice was carefully maintained, while the levers of power remained firmly in the hands of the Roman elite. Or consider the tactics of warfare throughout history. Sun Tzu, in The Art of War *, emphasized the importance of knowing your enemy and yourself, but this knowledge extends far beyond troop deployments and terrain. It delves into the enemy's psychology, their fears, their hopes, their vulnerabilities. A successful general understands how to manipulate these emotions to his advantage. Before a battle, rumors can be spread to demoralize the enemy, sowing seeds of doubt and fear among their ranks. False information can be leaked to mislead them about your intentions, creating confusion and disarray. During the battle itself, acts of calculated brutality can be employed to break the enemy's will to fight, demonstrating the futility of resistance. After the battle, acts of clemency can be offered to those who surrender, creating a sense of gratitude and encouraging further surrenders. This is not simply about killing the enemy, but about breaking their spirit, about controlling their minds so that they no longer have the will to resist. The element of surprise, a cornerstone of military strategy, is fundamentally a psychological weapon, exploiting the enemy's vulnerability and disrupting their ability to think clearly. The goal is to create a state of panic and disorientation, making them more susceptible to manipulation. Victory is not always achieved through superior firepower, but through superior psychological warfare. The greatest generals are not simply masters of tactics and logistics, but masters of the human mind. These historical examples illustrate a fundamental truth. The control of hidden minds is a powerful tool that can be used to achieve extraordinary things, but it is also a dangerous tool, one that can be easily abused. The ability to manipulate the emotions and beliefs of others carries a heavy responsibility. It is essential to consider the ethical implications of your actions and to ensure that your motives are aligned with a greater good. The pursuit of power for its own sake can lead to tyranny and oppression. True mastery lies not simply in the ability to control others, but in the wisdom to use that control judiciously and ethically. The temptation to exploit others for personal gain is ever present, but resisting this temptation is crucial to maintaining your own integrity and ultimately achieving lasting success. The most effective forms of control are those that are invisible, those that operate beneath the surface of conscious awareness. By understanding the hidden desires, fears, and motivations of others, you can subtly influence their behavior without them even realizing it. This requires a deep understanding of human psychology, as well as a keen awareness of your own biases and limitations. The manipulation of the human psyche is a delicate art, a precise surgery conducted not on flesh and bone, but on the very fabric of thought and emotion. Your ability to penetrate the surface, to identify the vulnerabilities and unspoken needs that drive behavior, is your sharpest weapon. Do not mistake this for mere trickery. This is about understanding the underlying architecture of the human mind, the intricate network of biases, beliefs, and insecurities that shape perception. To wield influence effectively, you must become a student of human nature, a detached observer of the emotional currents that flow beneath the surface of every interaction. Consider the power of framing. How a message is presented can be just as important as the message itself. By carefully crafting your words and actions, You can shape the perception of reality, guiding others towards a desired conclusion without ever resorting to coercion. This is not about lying or deceiving, but about strategically emphasizing certain aspects of the truth while downplaying others. Think of a master sculptor, carefully chiseling away at a block of marble to reveal the hidden form within. Your task is similar, to subtly shape the perceptions of others, revealing the aspects of reality that serve your purpose. The control of hidden minds is also about understanding the power of social dynamics. Human beings are social creatures, deeply influenced by the opinions and behaviors of those around them. By carefully manipulating the social environment, you can exert a powerful